today I'm here to lend my voice to all that has been said already. And it was so brazen. It has never been like this in this state before. I know that 2015 we went through very tough times. There was brazen display of federal might. But at least it wasn't as bad as this. In this case, not only was the Nigerian army directed to move over and take over our state, not only did the police, who claimed that they had over 30,000 men and officers on ground, they were on ground looking the other way while people were being mowed down in Nimbe, and no steps were taken, either to protect the people or to hold those who did that dastardly act to account. That was the first time that people were mowed down and killed, some ripped open in Nembe and thrown into the rivers without consequences. Up to now, no arrest. And we all know that Timothy Silva, with his cohorts, Kojo Sam and Gabriel Jonah in Ogulumabri, they plotted and carried out that act, which actually was intended as an assassination, because they knew I was to go there to campaign that day. And so in this state, we are now at a stage where people use armed militia to attack a rally, innocent people who are attending a rally, and mow them down at will. And even when the governor of a state is billed to attend, and the security keeps quiet, because it was meant as an assassination, because they knew I was going there. And unfortunately, at the last count, we have about 12 dead, and about 5 reports to me of people who are missing so far. And in various hospitals and clinics, we have about 70 people, 70. And I hope that the president of the country is listening or will be told. We have 70 people receiving treatment for various gunshot wounds and machete cuts inflicted on them. Unarmed people who were attending a rally, dancing and singing. That is the scenario we have in this state. That was before the election. And of course, that scared every normal human being. Voters did not have the courage, the incentive to go to vote in Nembe. And yet, you saw the results that were turned in from Nembe. And INEC, which has invested so much resources, not taxpayers' money as it is in other, but our oil money. INEC that has invested billions on this, never bothered about their processes and accepted and collated 80-something thousand votes from Nembe, where no voting took place. There was no voting, there was no election in Nembe to generate 80-something thousand votes. We have the clips where people were gathered together, core members, with INEC materials, held at gunpoint, and they were thumbprinted. They were thumbprinted. When the processes start, the world will know the results when the analysis, proper analysis is done. So ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. What took place in Bayelsa was not an election. It was a carefully planned, federally executed operation. Please, can you just 2-3 minutes show the slide of the APC members thumbprinting in Nembe? This is, his name is Iniro Ibogi, an APC member working with the INEC officials. Thumbprint, you can see him thumbprinting. Yes, thumbprinting one after the other, while the INEC officials are turning from one page to the other and is stamping. That's the kind of thing that took place in Nembe, all through. So there was no time that registered voters in Nembe lined up and voted their conscience and made a choice. And the same is to be said about Southern Niger also. The speaker who is sitting here was a collating officer, was our own agent, our own local government agent at the local government level. And word after word that was hijacked, the cases were presented and there was understanding. It was clear that so many words, the words in the Iniware word, taken away, materials taken away by hoodlums aided by security forces. Opuama ward, taken away by hoodlums, armed hoodlums, with security forces. With all of them, all the other wards, most of them, hijacked by hoodlums, armed militia, with the active connivance of security forces. And they were taken either to Ogbembri community or Lomobri community, the hometown of the APC candidate, protected by the Nigerian security officials. And that was where, those were the places they stayed and wrote and thumbprinted and wrote results and brought them for collation. And these cases were all, both the hijack and all that transpired, these matters, these incidents were reported to the local authorities, reported ultimately to INEC, and yet INEC received and accepted results purporting to be products of this kind of exercise. And we have the clips, in most cases. We have all the clips. So that is the kind of charade that took place in the name or likeness of an election. So we need to be very clear, my dear friends and people of Bayelsa State. What happened here on the 16th and 17th was not an election. It was simply a federally planned, forcefully executed, forceful takeover of Bayelsa State for the APC in order to lay the foundation for making Nigeria a one-party state. And for those who may be gloating, for those who may think that the worst has happened, we want to be very clear that as Democrats, we believe in using the systems, the democratic systems and procedures to challenge what has happened. Look at what happened in Ogbia. In Ogbia, there was no collation done in any of the RAC or world headquarters as stipulated. In most of the areas, at the conclusion of the vote, the soldiers came and heralded everybody, ordered every person that they were taking them to Ogbia town. And there they kept everybody, brought more soldiers, led by a lieutenant colonel. Where have you seen that happen? A lieutenant colonel from 6th Division, given the mandate to coordinate that military operation in Ogbia town. In Ogbia town, you had so many soldiers taking over the entire place and asking all PDP leaders to leave, to enable them replace pre-written results. The results that were announced for Ogbia are not real. There has been no time that the people of Ogbia, since this democracy, voted that way. Not even when a son of that local government was former president. In 2011 presidential election, Ogbia never voted that way. In 2015, when I was governor and presided over the coordination of the elections, the people of Ogbia never voted that way. So where did they generate all those votes from? What happened in reality was that our democracy is at a stage now where you have two sets of results. You have one result set of sheets that every other person, they will go and distribute on election day. But the federally backed party and their officials have another set of result sheets already filled, figures predetermined, and they target where those ones should be executed. That's what happened. So the APC leaders in this election had access to predetermined figures and pre-filled result sheets. And they decided to effect that in 3 local government areas in our state. They did that for Southern Niger, claiming that they can justify it because their candidate is from there, forgetting that 2015, when the APC leader, Chief Silva, ran against me, his running mate was Southern Niger. And yet he lost in almost all the wards. We have our speaker here from Southern Niger, the state chairman of our party from Southern Niger, the DG of campaign Southern Niger. All the 4 assembly seats in Southern Niger are occupied by the PDP. The chairman of the party of the council is PDP, with 17 councillors, and all key political leaders, except very few of them, went to the other side. So in word after word, the APC knew that there was no way they could win, or even if they won because of some little sentiments, that they knew that the figures were not going to be enough to guarantee victory. So they went there with pre-written result sheets in Southern Niger. They went with pre-written result sheets in Ogbia, which they executed. They went with pre-written result sheets in Nembe to turn out the number of votes that they had predetermined that they were going to have. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to be very clear that what has happened in Bayelsa is one of the most brazen acts of distortion of our democracy, a brazen rape of our democracy. And I want to use this medium to thank and appreciate the peaceful disposition that our people have displayed. I know a number of you have in anger asked me why I didn't sanction you to do any other thing that would have helped or protected yourselves. But as you all know me, I believe in the politics of ideas. I believe in politics of stability. I believe in peace. I believe in using the existing systems and rules to fight for redress. And I have no doubt that I'm right. I know that the temptation is grave. I know that the pain is serious and will last for a long time. But I want to, as I've been doing since 16th and 17th, use this opportunity to call on you all to continue to show restraint. Two wrongs do not make a right. And when you have a situation where all institutions of state which have been put in place to support the exercise of your democratic rights, if those are the ones that have now colluded with armed militia, with INEC, you can imagine that the result is foregone. The result, the outcome is foregone, and that's what they wanted. So I want to urge you all to continue that way. Don't resort to violence. Violence is not the solution. And for those of you who have seen me since then, I want to repeat to you publicly what I've been telling you all privately. That we cannot be Democrats and at the same time be raising and funding and arming armed militias. You all know how that politics of brigandage led this state to before we took over 2012. This state was a killing field, and working with our people, showing leadership and example, and raising the bar on the values of government that I've been doing for the past 8 years, close to 8 years now. You can see why, in spite of all these distractions and the strains and stresses, our state essentially continues to be stable and safe. In the past close to 8 years, power has not been used by me to terrorize and harass and injure the rights of anyone, not even the weakest. Rather, we have used state power and authority and resources for the public good. We are not right at all times. We can't claim we have solved all the problems. But this one thing you all know, that we came, we saw, we've made a difference, and that difference will be here for a long time. And that difference is not in terms of the number of schools we have built, which we have built more than any other government. So when some people are talking or doing things out of envy, I understand, and you understand. We've done so much that they could have done, but did not do. We have built more hospitals and health facilities, taking care of our people in a manner never before done. We have built more roads and bridges, connecting communities that people thought could not be connected. We have built peace and stability in our state. And we have taught the lesson that power at all times has to be used. Power and public resources must be used at all times for the good and for the development of our people. I believe that these are lessons that we should not regret. These are lessons that we commend any day to the younger generation. An appeal that the federal government should do more in the area of restraining armed militia that have taken over the electoral process in this state since 2015. Since 2015, election after election, we have witnessed several deaths. We have witnessed killings. We have witnessed destructions of homes. We have returned back to those days of people exiling their brothers and sisters from their homes in Nimbe, a practice that I stopped when I became governor, and gave instructions to the security forces, engaged with the leaders, and escorted all those who were displaced from their communities right to Nembe and Brass. And I want to thank the hard-working, conscientious security officers who served in my first Security Council. But the same people, some of those who have been driven away from Nembe and Brass, that my government, because of our policy, returned back to those who are the same people now who are being supported by Timothy Silva and his APC government, backed by the federal government and the security forces, to now drive away people. Senator Degi, who is the running mate of the APC, couldn't go home. His houses were vandalized. I had to direct security to take him to Basambri and supported the reconstruction of his homes. The same thing for Baymon Spiff, who could not go home, and his brother. I had to direct security to take them home. And these are the proactive but firm and clear decisions and principles that we followed to return Bayelsa to normalcy. A normalcy that we all now enjoy. And in close to 8 years, not one opposition figure will say that my government harassed, that my government intimidated, that my government sent armed thugs to attack rallies. No. That was the norm under Timothy Silva when he was served as governor. Not even the presidential campaign train of then candidate Buhari was spared. But in the last 8 years, we have moved our state beyond all of this. And I would like to congratulate all Bayelsans for this, because while these physical developments are good, the overall enthronement of a stable, peaceful, and conducive atmosphere is the most important condition for development. Now that is under threat. That is under threat. But I just wish our people well, continue to pray for our state that we so love, and I expect that as we move to the next phase of examining the process and of exploring the procedures and the mechanisms provided by the law and the Constitution, because we shouldn't go outside that, no matter the temptation. And I want to use this opportunity again to call on all the youth leaders who have been raising concerns and issues, and all those who are aggrieved, to take it easy. I understand the pain. No one understands the danger this development has for your future more than me. With the hard work that I and my team, working day and night, have put in the last close to 8 years, I can see all of it endangered by what has happened. But the solution is not violence. The solution is not to do anything that will aggravate our already stable society. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me round up by saying what I said in my remarks when I went to vote, which is a call, firstly, to the federal government and the president of the country to take steps to protect all Nigerians, protect our people. We are not asking for anything more than that. If there are policemen, if there are soldiers here, let it be clear to everybody that people should do their jobs. Now the rigging, the massive distortion of our democratic system has taken place. I want to invite all security agencies to return back to their professional ways so that we can continue to preserve and secure our state and our people. And once again, I remind all that on the state of the law, on the 16th, the APC did not have a validly nominated or qualified candidate to go into the polls. But we leave the judiciary to do their job. I condemn the intemperate language, the unfortunate way and manner Chief Timipri Silva referred to a judicial officer, who, by the way, is someone I've not even seen by my values. But it's not just an attack on that individual judicial officer, it's an affront on the entire judiciary, an affront on our democracy. These are the kind of brigands and outlaws that I have had to contend and protect our people against. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm open to take some questions. Thank you very much.
My name is Lamido Abubakar. I report for VOA. Your Excellency, just recently the APC governors visited former President Goodluck Jonathan's house. So are you satisfied? Can you know your own reaction for this visit during the election?
Well, I saw the images and also later read about it. First of all, my reaction is that the former President Jonathan, who is a former leader of our country, remains a leader of our country, right away, is at liberty to receive dignitaries when they come into this state. He knows that I always encourage that. I always encourage when dignitaries visit me. I always call him to tell him people who have visited, and also to say I've requested them to pay a courtesy call on him. He knows that that's what I have been doing with him. But in the context of all that is going on, I know that the insinuations out there are not misplaced. In the midst of all of it, what I think the APC leaders are doing is strategic. Maybe the former president is not seeing it that way, but I can see the strategic content in what they are doing, which is they came to Bayelsa to take his state and his people by force, willy-nilly. This was not an election. They knew. They planned all of it. And they are my colleagues and my friends also. The governor of Kebbi and the governor of Jigawa, they are both my colleagues and friends. They never called me. They never visited me. But being a former president, I don't think it was out of place. But the game the APC leaders are playing, not just with that visit, but with the comments they are making about him, APC, Oshamole, and co. coming to this soil of Bayelsa to be praising President Jonathan. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. But the reason they are doing that, if the former president doesn't see it, then it's really sad. What they are doing is they have been laying the foundation for this gross violation of the democratic rights of his people. His Ogbia people never voted. The votes they have ascribed to them are false. His people, the people of Bayelsa State, who have stood with him all these years, through thick and thin, and I know that no politician has stood by him more than me in this state. And he is our leader, he is our Maoga any day. So what they did is, because of what they planned, they had to systematically lay a foundation. First, expand using his name and his image to legitimize the illegitimate. And that's why they had to be taking David Lyon to him, they had to be talking about him, they had to visit him, and appear to be celebrating a victory never ends. So on the part of the APC, they are strategic. I can see the strategic content. And the APC themselves knows. Timipri Silva, who is the leader of APC, and David Lyon, the candidate, the purported governor-elect, knows that the former president is not the one that has contributed to the rigging. But what they have used the former president's image is firstly to expand this notion of a disagreement, to justify the allocation of figures, and then after the rigging, to now go to him. In other words, they have done terrible things which they know are not defensible. So like Pontius Pilate, they are preparing a window by which they will wash off their hands strategically and put it at his doorstep. That he endorsed it, he sanctioned it, he legitimized it. That's the game they are playing. But on a general note, former president knows that I have always encouraged and advised that should focus on national and international, because that's the face and the leader we have. That's what we worked for, and God raised them for us, all of us, for all of us. And so when we see him interacting with dignitaries, for me that's a thing of joy. That's a thing of joy. But in the context that all of this has been happening, from his meeting with David Lyon and Silva in Abuja, and when he had not met with his candidate of his party, when they had not congratulated the candidate of his party, a candidate who emerged in a primary that he himself voted, participated in. As Democrats, I don't think that that is ideal. But you know, he's my leader, he's my Oga, my elder brother, and I'm always very reluctant to express my views, except this recent very open one that I'm responding to. But let's accord him the right to meet with other dignitaries. That's a good thing. I want to see more of that happen here in Bayelsa. Thank you.
My name is Mohammed Bello. I report for Voice of Germany, Hausa, English, Africa Service. First of all, let me say this, that the whole ball game that has unfolded in Bayelsa State regarding its politics was something that has hit the imagination of all, especially those that are far from Bayelsa, only hearing Bayelsa on news. Your Excellency, many are wondering as to how came that happened. Could it be, this is the question, could it be perhaps lack of maybe management of the stakeholders? Because many are saying that most major stakeholders have not been carried along. What will you say on this?
Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, these are things we've heard over and over. Let me take you back to 2015 when I ran for my second tenure. In my second tenure, 2015, with the APC government at the federal level, there were no issues of candidature. I was the governor running for a second term. You had the campaigns that were massive. It's about the political culture of the people. The federal government had already, APC had won at the center, then looking very beautiful and attractive. And you need to know that I am the governor here that has held this state in opposition. No governor has managed this state in opposition. I'm the very first. Confronting very vicious people who have very little regard for lives, for laws, and for rules, like Tinubu Silva and his ilk. But 2015, when Silva was the candidate, Senator Lobobri, then minister, was his DG of campaign. They were working together at the time. Chief Alaibe was also in APC at the time. I won. You had the campaigns, went into the elections, and I won. Largely because I think the security agencies, even though there was misconduct, but it wasn't as pronounced as this. INEC was also more professional and firm on their rules. So this notion of disagreement among stakeholders is easier said. I mean, anybody can allege that. But politics is about management of human beings and interests. And I keep telling people, which is why my brand of politics is not violent. We disagree seriously, legitimate. You have ambitions and interests, legitimate. I also have mine, legitimate. Accord that to me too. And then we see how we manage all of this in the overall interest of the state and of the party and everyone else. So, there was never going to be any time, and there will be never any time, that there will be no disagreement among stakeholders. Take for example, whoever would have been flag bearer of PDP, it wouldn't have stopped the federal government from doing what they did, the federal forces, unless that person had an arrangement that suited them. How are you to prevent INEC from being unprofessional? How are you to prevent the Nigerian army from being professional when the GOC decided to do what it did with the commander of LLA, deploying their troops? You have no control over that. You have no control over the professional conduct of the police, the DIG who came here, and until he left, or I don't know if he's there, he has never seen me, with over 30,000 police officers. So they have enough people here to prevent killings, to prevent a distortion of the electoral process, but they chose not to. So no disagreement or agreement of stakeholders will stop that. So anybody who was flag bearer of PDP would have still suffered the same fate. I have read in the social media, and you know, a number of people stay in their bedrooms and promote all kinds of notions. If Mr. A was flag bearer, PDP would have won. That is your conjecture. We never lost an election, gentlemen. That's the point I'm making. We never had an election. This was not a democratic election, which is supposed to be a contest between political parties and individual players, with the umpire, with the security people, all playing their assigned roles. That never happened. More than that, they descended into the arena. Look at what they did. They deployed soldiers to Ogben, I've told you, led by a colonel. And they deployed soldiers to every APC leader in every ward in Bayelsa. Security people were attached to them. The whole aim was to use them as the people were voting, terrorize them, shoot, take away materials, hand them over to the APC. What kind of agreement among stakeholders would have prevented that on election day? So these are the parameters we have to look at. Yes, if we had had, I think we had reasonable consensus of stakeholders. We had majority of the aspirants, those who contested, who worked with our candidate and the party right to the very end. I'm not complaining if we lost in areas where election took place. That is democracy in action. That's democracy. I can understand that. If voters have concerns and issues that have made them to vote one way or the other, as Democrats, we must abide and respect that decision. I'll be the first to even congratulate the other side by my values. But what they have done, and which is why people like you are looking at issues of disagreement, whether they are talking of former president with whom I have no problem. I don't have any issue with him. No problem. He's my guy, my leader, any day. My elder brother, any day. There's nothing he has asked me to do that I have not done. There's no time he has sent for me, my governor, come, that I have not come. There's no time I've called him and said, sir, are you available? I'm coming, that he will say, don't come. So we want, but you see, people expand these notions because it suits the strategic objective of the APC. And if people don't know that they are used as pawns in a larger strategic game that they may not understand, then they better do so now. So any other person who would have been a candidate of PDP would have suffered the same fate. It's not about PDP, it's not about me, it's not about by the government. I run a government that I'm very proud of, and Bayelsans know that sector after sector, we have advanced this state over 20 years ahead. I just have sympathy for the future of the state, really. So, the notion of disagreements among stakeholders, while you cannot rule out that completely, you can't achieve 100% unanimity in a party. What about the APC? The APC had more disagreements in their ranks going into these last elections than the PDP. They have more court cases pending than the PDP. As a matter of fact, there is a valid judgment of the Federal High Court at the instance of one of their chieftains, Senator Lobobri, saying that the primaries that purportedly produced they rely on and should be set aside. And the court has made a formal judgment, a final judgment to that effect. So the APC has not benefited from this because they are more united or PDP is more divided. No. But that narrative of a division, that narrative of a disagreement between myself and former President Jonathan, which is more imaginary than real, suits the strategic objectives of the APC. The narrative of my brother and friend, Chief Alaibi, not being part of the campaign, not agreeing to join in the campaigns, fuels the notion that also suits the APC strategic objective. But what I know as a politician on ground who has administered this state longer than any other person in Bayelsa, I know the politics of this state and our people politically more than any other governor alive. Because I'm the only one that's doing 8 years. I know that with the determination that the federal forces came to show here, whoever was APC flag, PDP flag bearer wouldn't have made a difference. And in any case, who best to support than the man who has the support of the government and of the systems around? Any other person couldn't have even given half of what was put into this election. So I know this is a time, it's very tempting for blaming people. Everybody wants to blame the other person, but I know and you all know that we didn't lose an election. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ajay Nelson and I work for Explicit TV Nigeria. Governor, sir, I want to ask you, you've said quite a few things here. Now, moving forward, what is your confidence in the rule of law and the judiciary to serve justice in this very matter? Thank you.
Well, first of all, the purpose of this is to add to the narrative out there, which is the truth, which is that no normal democratic election took place in southern Niger, in Nembe, and even in Ogbia. I've done several elections. Ogbia votes, they go neck and neck, neck to neck, neck to neck. My own re-election 2015, I won Ogbia, which is Maoga's local government, by 2,000 votes against Mipri Silva. Because those people, they vote neck to neck, except in the Ayama riverine areas, difficult to police. So all those thousands of votes they wrote, they were just predetermined figures. Now back to your question. Do I believe in the rule of law? Do I believe in the judiciary? My answer is not only yes, but that any politician who does not believe in the rule of law and the capacity of the judiciary of his country or state to administer justice is not a politician but a brigand. And clearly everybody knows me, they know my values. Respect for people, respect for everyone, respect for the laws and the systems and the processes. I'm a process person. And with my background, which most of you know, from the police down to a prosecutor, to the Attorney General of this state, a member of the House, back to being governor, and what I've done here, I'm a product of the law. You can't disrespect the laws and seek to be in government. You can't be disrespectful of the laws and of the judiciary and claim you are a political leader. No, 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 no. So, I have implicit confidence in the judiciary and its ability and capacity to do justice where the facts and the law are clear. I believe that no one should resort to raising and funding militia groups. And everyone knows that I've fought that battle. I'm a product of the jail establishment, I always say, but I don't subscribe to criminality and brigandage in the name of that. And they know. So whether it is militants, whether it is cultists, and criminals and brigands, they know my position. Unfortunately, under our system and under our rules, governors have limitations. The federal government, that is the final repository, and this is where the president comes in. And we all have to plead, not just for the case of Bayelsa alone, but everywhere, that the security forces should be supported and encouraged at all times to do what is right, not be partisan. But if we have a situation where the army is partisan, you have an APC army now, you have an APC Department of State Services, you have an APC Nigeria Police, you have an APC Civil Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, from that day we should say bye-bye to our country. Because that is the beginning of the failure of any nation. But what we saw in Bayelsa gives us very serious room for doubt as to whether this country were serious in making progress or not. The little gains we have made in our democracy, which made it possible for the APC to defeat a sitting PDP government, we have, with instances like this, we have thrown it away because we want to satisfy the vengeful spirit of people like Timothy Silva, who feels, oh, now I am in federal government, we must use the federal power to take my state by force. You can't please someone's insatiable greed for power and destroy the integrity of all institutions, and above all, demean the dignity of his own people. That's what has gone on in Bayelsa. So, back to your question, my faith and confidence in the rule of law and the judiciary remains intact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll take one more question. Please, your name and the station.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I am Nikari Anderson, and I report for Niger Delta Television. Earlier on, some startling documentary evidence which places a crucial question on the legitimacy of the election, were presented. My question is, in view of the fact that a very lengthy, protracted legal battle appears to be looming, how much support and solidarity are you receiving from the national leadership and, of course, your PDP brother governors towards pursuing this question, this case to a logical conclusion?
Well, you're talking of solidarity. We have the support and backing of the national leadership of our party to do what is right. As for brother governors, there's nothing that they will not be free to support us to do, because they all understand. That what the APC has done, and which is why people who have been used to legitimize this illegality need to think again. What the APC has shown by this forceful takeover of Bayelsa is to have this foothold, and in the next election, unless you have far-reaching reforms, unless you have greater commitment for electoral reforms, and you have a situation where all institutions and agencies are professional, you can imagine what will go on in other states of the Niger Delta that are currently under PDP control. What they have demonstrated now is their readiness by force of arms to take the South-South states by force, willy-nilly. It's just a question of time. I am completing my 8 years as governor, the very first governor to achieve that feat in very trying circumstances. And what I've done here, the legacies I'll be leaving, whether they like it or not, generations unborn will recognize what I and my team have been able to do. So it's not personal to me, but the desecration of our democracy that they have come to showcase in Bayelsa is a dress rehearsal for what I think is going to play out between now and 2023. So, my dear friends, my dear colleagues and fellow Nigerians, we are in for the reality of a one-party state. The APC to have the effrontery to think of coming to this state where in a free and fair election they can't win anything. People talk of a senator. They never won that seat. It was the same way. Soldiers, security, they lost everywhere. They lost in that senatorial district, they lost Ogbia, they lost Brass. But they wrote several results and gave full accredited PVC numbers. So what is the investment about PVCs for in this country, if I may ask INEC? So that is what they have now expanded. And I see Nigeria moving towards a full-blown one-party state, and how well our democracy will survive in that midst is an open question. But back to your question, we have the full support of the national leadership. They are all outraged, as so many Nigerians and lovers of Nigeria and lovers of democracy are truly outraged. The people contesting are Bayelsans. David Lyon is a Bayelsan. I call him my younger brother. If you have won in a free and fair, peaceful process, by my values and my style, I will direct the candidate and the party to call him, to congratulate him. But you cannot spill blood without regard to the sanctity of human lives in Nembe, without respect for the dignity of people in southern Niger and Ogbia, and say you have produced a governor-elect, and they are doing all that they are doing to legitimize, taking him here, taking him there, taking all of that going on. We are used to those things. It's a way of legitimizing, and they will do more things. But this state, any candidate we support and back wins an election on ground. We never lost an election. This was not an election that the PDP and my candidate lost. Wherever people stood to vote, we won. If they won, the differences will be very, and you don't need to win everywhere to win. But the APC is on rampage, and I wish our country and our democracy the best of luck. But for me, for us who are Democrats by choice, even when it is not convenient, we have to remain as Democrats. We have to remain so as Democrats. Because in our young democracy, in a third world African country, we do not expect perfection. But the level that they went is too brazen. Too brazen. Because if we are in a contest and one party has result sheets pre-written and brought into Yenagoa, and the APC encouraged anyone to go and buy one AK-47 rifle. This morning before I came here, my state chairman came to me to say, okay, whatever it is, wherever you are, we stand. And so many of them since this incident till now. You have taught us well, you have led us well. But as a pastor, let me tell you, the one lesson I won't forget is your lesson on tolerance and non-violence. A politician in this state, like me, I've never, in budgeting for elections, made out money for my supporters to go and procure arms. Is that not so? Never. The norm was for people to go and purchase weapons to shoot and kill people, which Chief Silver and his ilk are the masters. And unfortunately, the federal government does not call him to order. It's always rewarded and supported. So the security of our state since 2015 has been outsourced to Timothy Silver. They bring in commissioners of police the way they want. Now this is about the 17th one in 1 year. When they don't like, if the person does not do what they transfer the person away, they bring another one so that their cult members and killers cannot be arrested. If a commissioner tries to arrest them, the following day is transferred. That is the government I have managed. And in spite of all these distractions, I've kept all of you safe and made our state stable. There's no political leader I know who interacts more with stakeholders than me. From morning till midnight, I'm meeting with people. So the notion of disagreement among stakeholders is not right. Even when we disagree, I am engaging. Never insulting, never disrespecting, but holding firmly to my views. And you've got to convince me if we must change our views. I will convince you, you convince me. And let me round up by saying that, look, I don't like talking about my guy who is my leader any day. But let me say it today. I wanted to keep some of these things so that in my memoirs, people can read. In this transition, I went to former President Jonathan 16 times to say, sir, can we meet and agree on a candidate? Both of us will hold a hand. Most of you don't know. Now, if as a governor for 8 years, and I keep engaging, and all I see is an attempt to back a candidate who people perceive is not supportive of me and my system, and is backed to be flag bearer of my party of which I'm leader, to humiliate me. Look, if you present that to me 100 times, I will shut it down 100 times. So those who package that ambition in that manner didn't mean well for the person they were supporting. And did not also mean well for me, for the party, or even for the former president. Because whoever emerged, we are all these people, is our guy. But to frame a governorship ambition, which was allowed to be, just like this one, David Lyons' victory, is now framed around him again. Something that he should be very distant from. Some ambitions in our party were framed as a contest between him and of me. Very bad. And I warned and cautioned against it. So that even if we make mistakes, if he's distant, he corrects, steps in to call and advise. So, gentlemen, these are some of the developments you all need to know. I don't always talk about. It's because of the deep respect I have, which is the right thing to do. But let it be known clearly that I and the government have absolute regard and respect that is due former president of our country from our place. How many do we have? And no politician in Bayelsa has worked harder and more with him than me. It's my guy any day. And he himself has helped me so much. It's my guy any day. But people with different, look at what they are bringing this David Lyon thing again. If somebody wants to be governor, they'll bring him in. If this one wants to be a chairman of council, they will bring him. If they want to be a councillor, they will bring him. That's not fair to the man. Because he's higher, much, much higher than all of this. So I want you all to know that all those blackmail stories are not true, doesn't reflect the true state of affairs. Even as I live here, if he calls me, my governor, come, I'll say, yes, sir, when? And that's the way it will be. But you know, it takes two hands to wash themselves clean. I do my part. And I want you all to know that the notion that the APC is promoting, that because of a disagreement, they won Bayelsa, that is balderdash. That is false. They are trying to justify the daylight robbery of the democratic rights of our people. And they are busy, desperately looking for justification. They will look for much more. So thank you very much for coming.